worship you, I idolize you, I shall die without you. If you want me to die, you have but to give the word, and I am ready. I have always loved you, every minute since I first beheld you night and day. I shall always love you, every minute to distraction. Lovers have loved before, and lovers will love again. But no one has ever loved. Might, could, would, should ever love. You as I love you. Dora and I were engaged. Happy time, but foolish, insubstantial, idle, happy time. Of all the times of mine in my life, time has in its grip. There are none that I can smile at half so much and think of half so tenderly.
Tristan, tell us about your role.
Well, I'm playing David Copperfield, who is the title hero of the piece. And the whole story is about him, from his very birth to becoming a man, I suppose, and finding his true love. And a lot of it is based on Dickens' own life. It's about a young boy who grows up and ends up working in a poorhouse, running away, and then becoming a writer, very much mirroring lots of Dickens' life. So it's a fun role because you get to do a lot. I get to run around, be a little kid. I get to sort of have lots of dramatic moments. Then I get to have all the kind of romantic-y leading bits. But no, it's a good fun role. It's good.
Have you done any other research on David Copperfield? I mean, as you said, it kind of mirrors Dickens' life.
Well, I've studied a bit of Dickens at university, so I've got sort of a basic knowledge of Dickens and his style. But the problem with this is it's been a very, very short rehearsal process. 3 weeks, and being sort of we've conglomerated two parts. David 1, who is the younger David, and David 2, who's the older David, into sort of one part, which meant I've had to learn twice the amount. And with only 3 weeks, I couldn't read the novel, so I feel like I've had to get as much as I could out of my own sort of past knowledge and from the text. But I feel like I've got enough of a basis to do some research on.
You've had a crash course.
It has been an absolute crash course. This thing is no time for any sort of mistakes. It's all been just kind of ploughing through. But I mean, I like that. I like just getting on with it.
Getting in with the
That's
deep end.
the way I like working, yeah.
Has there been, with this particular adaptation, is there anything unique that this has brought?
Yeah, I think there's a great ensemble sense to the piece, and there's a kind of element of something of a kind of watching a troupe of actors creating the story in front of you, which is great. Lots of companies, it's very popular now to work with ensemble. I think the days of kind of the star is kind of going a bit. And it's great fun to see. I love seeing companies when you see them all working together. I think it's something very much got here. And lots of the actors are also musicians as well, so you've got people who play the music and who provide a lot of the mood, not through just their acting, but through mime, music, lots of kind of inventive scenery, things like that. It's a very fun, lively show in that sense.
When you were given the role
Yeah.
of David Copperfield, did you think, well, I've seen this and I've read about it,
Yeah.
I want to put my mark to it?
Yeah, there is, Sam, the director, cautioned, well, one of his sort of caveats when we started was we didn't want to make Dora, or Agnes, who's the sort of, is the mirroring female lead for David, too wet, because there's, a lot of Dickens' lead characters, Oliver Twist, any of the ones from Bleak House, Martin Chuzzlewit, they're all quite sort of wet, very, very Victorian character heroes. For a modern audience, they're quite unpalatable. So we wanted to sort of, look at why he's actually quite, he's a young man, he's quite selfish, he makes lots of bullish mistakes. But, people like him because essentially there's kind of like a positivity about him and a drive that is very attractive, I think, to the character. But we did want to make a sort of bit of a 3D because there's lots of accusations of Dickens being very 2D. So a lot of the characters we've approached from that big element of 2D and then started to look at how we can bring more depth into them, sympathy, empathy, antipathy towards the characters for the audience.
And do you think that's why it's lasted the test of time?
I think, yes, I think it's everyone goes on about how it's Dickens' greatest novel, and I think it's because it's so personal to him. I think from the bits that I have read and from the influence it's obviously had on the rest of his work and on other writers, because it's so deeply personal and it comes from such a place in his own life, that he has just given everything to it. And he confessed that. I think he said something like, as every father has a favourite child, so every writer has a favourite work. And this was his own. I think the reason it stood the test of time is because he put 2 years of his life into making this incredible story which just goes all over the place and meets all these insane and wonderful characters. And I think there's also, at the end of the day, it's also just a ripping yarn. It's fun to see these kind of characters and see these great stories unfold. So I think that's the reason it stood the test of time.
Was there anything particularly challenging to you?
I think some of the biggest challenges is just the fact I'm on stage all the time. Because I think for the reader, David is kind of their link to the story, so he's never allowed off stage. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So he's stuck there on stage all the time, guiding you through, which is I'm on stage for 2.5, I think about 2.5 hours, and you're just remembering where you're going. It's all there's lots going on. It's very complex, and because it's quite, it jumps around a lot because the novel is so huge. You're sort of doing bits here, and then you're running around there, and then you're sort of just having to keep on top of it. So I think just a sense of perspective was the biggest challenge of the whole thing.
And also, you just lost your voice, you said.
Yeah, well, very sadly, it's always the way, you know. It was going great for 3 weeks, and then I think it was just the exhaustion, because you're doing very long hours, and it just hit me, and I had to take a couple of days off, and I did lots of steaming, drinking honey lemon tea, looking after myself, and I like talking, as you can probably see. That was the hardest thing, to not talk for 3 days. That was hard, but been to the doctors, it's all better now, so it's all back on track.
Brilliant, and we shall look forward to seeing you later on.
Thank you very much.
Tristan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.